About 2 years ago, I started this series as an easy way to share random thoughts about what I was playing every month, and also kind of as a note to self so I could look back 2, 3, 5 years later and say, oh yeah, I did play that game, and that's what I thought about it. This is why I keep the editing simple and why I use a mix of pre-scripted sections, like you're watching right now, and just winging it when I feel like just rambling about something and not being as precise. As of recording, I have made 21 episodes, with this being the 22nd, and I've enjoyed having a place to talk about stuff that doesn't fit into any of my other videos. So I'm very glad that I've made this series, but it's time for a change. Instead of focusing on the best games that I play within a month, I want to talk about everything I play, including things like demos, including games that I didn't like, and maybe even going a bit more into some of the behind the scenes. Now, if you've been following the past few episodes, I've already done a little bit of this unofficially, but to make it official, I also have a new name for this series: Game Diary, a monthly look into what I'm playing. So, whether you've been watching since episode 1, or you're brand new and maybe a little bit confused by this intro, thank you for watching, and enjoy the first official episode of Game Diary, which is episode 22, where I talk about everything that I played in August of 2025. At the very start of August, or more accurately the end of July, the early access for Titan Quest II got shadow dropped. Now, about a year back, after the Titan Quest II announcement, I tried Titan Quest Enhanced Edition, and I very quickly bounced off the game. I don't know, maybe it's just because it's quite old, but I found the combat to be boring, the mechanics of the gameplay quite clunky, and there was just too much combat in between the story, which is the part that I was actually interested in. So instead, I called it good to playing the game and watch the story on YouTube. Surprisingly, Titan Quest II gave me the same vibe as the original when it came to the world and its approach to storytelling. They have done a remarkably good job of making Titan Quest II feel like Titan Quest. In other words, it's a wander around the map sort of game, where you're let loose in a big area to explore, and there's plenty of content to encounter, whether it is the main quest or a bunch of side stories. Your goal here is not to rush to endgame, to get to max level as fast as possible, any of that stuff. I mean, technically you can, but with how little content there is in the early access, all that's going to mean is you'll be done with the game in a couple hours. So you might as well wander and enjoy the journey, because that's how the game is designed. And after playing through the early access content, I spent some time making a few new characters to try different builds. Which is when I found out that most of the builds right now are one-dimensional, where you spec into one skill and it does pretty much everything. Occasionally you'll spec into a second skill. A good example of this, there's a lot of stuff where you want to convert your damage over to a certain type, so you spec heavily into the aura that converts your damage over, and it provides a big DPS bump. I guess on my Whirlwind build, I did end up legitimately using 2 skills, but the second one, but honestly, I don't know how effective it was to use the second skill at all. It certainly looked pretty to have a whirling ring of red death around me. And yes, it did give me some bonuses, but I don't know if any of that was strictly required because the game is also very, very easy. How easy? Well, I was boosting the difficulty to +5 and raising monster level to match my character, at least when I had the gold. How many times did I die? I can count that number on the fingers of one hand, because it's 4. I died 4 total times across, I think it was close to 30 hours of playtime with the different characters that I made. And one of those deaths was intentional because I legitimately didn't know what happened when you died after playing the game for like 10 hours. So there are some interesting bones for build crafting here. And like I said in my early access review, if you just want a game that is not a live service, that presents an interesting world and a compelling reason to spend time in it, what they have right now is good. It feels very polished. I didn't encounter bugs. I didn't encounter crashes. But if you're looking for a complete experience, then maybe wait until the game's actually out. Also, if you want to know more about my thoughts on the game, check out my review up in the card and down below. Despite there not being a ton of content, I had fun with the builds I played. I'm not sure I'll revisit it next patch, but I'm definitely going to be coming back at some point in the future. Next up, I tried the pre-access for Moonbeast Game. And this is certainly the hardest to talk about, because what do I say when a game is so early? I can't say whether I liked or disliked the graphical style, because that's probably going to change. I can't really meaningfully say much about if the game was easy or hard, because that's definitely going to change. All I can look at is the concept. The idea of Diablo meets Minecraft, which, yes, I know, is a very crude analogy. The game isn't strictly trying to be Minecraft. It's not strictly a voxel world. But a lot of your spells do interact with terrain in a way that I remember from games like Minecraft and Trove. In terms of the ARPG mechanics, it is very Diablo. Kill monsters, get loot. There's going to likely be some sort of crafting system so that you can interact with your items in the future. For now, it's all about picking stuff up off the floor. And much like with Titan Quest 2, I think there's very much a market for old school games or games that aren't made to be a live service, that aren't constantly pushing you to play again, log in, and make a new character. Because sometimes you just want to chill. And this is exactly the sort of game that gives you a reason to do that. Not that that means the gameplay itself has to be boring. In fact, the Necropolis Zone was very far from chill, with dangerous high-level enemies that were constantly murdering me. Luckily, I got the last laugh because currently, damage over time effects are overpowered. So, this is very much one to watch, as opposed to a game that I explicitly recommend or recommend against at this time. It is simply too early to make recommendations, but if you like Diablo, or if you want an ARPG that's doing something different, keep an eye on Moonbeast Game because they're trying to do something different, and I'm really interested to see where that leads. Next up, I also spent more time playing Hellclock. Yes, that's right, the very same Hellclock I played a ton of last month, because I didn't get enough yet. I wanted to try a few more builds and push my Ascension levels. In addition, the devs have set out an ambitious roadmap with the first major update called Clockmaker's Tools being planned for September of 2025. Hey, that's next month. Actually, no, never mind, that's right now, because I am editing this on August 31st. But what's coming in this update? Well, crafting. And personally, I like crafting systems that focus on changing existing items and building them up, as opposed to a system that lets you simply craft a fully finished item once you collect the requisite materials. And since Hellclock calls it an exile-like, I suspect this crafting is going to involve currency orbs for item manipulation, adding stats, removing stats, building things up. All the fun stuff, rather than simply, I can craft 50 random revolvers and equip one that has the best stats. I'm also looking forward to the remaining constellations, as there's some build archetypes that when I was experimenting felt very lackluster, Bleed being a good example of this. There simply isn't enough support in the current version of a game to make it into a thing. But that's not coming until the Movement 2.0 update, which, if they keep to schedule, is going to be coming in November. So, after pushing to Ascension 50, I made a build wrap-up video, but something tells me this isn't going to be the last time this year that I'll be diving in to play Hellclock. In fact, now that I'm talking about everything I've played in a month, it's very likely that Hellclock is going to become a regularly featured segment on this very series. The final game I spent time playing was Soulstone Survivors. I've been meaning to play this for a while. Originally, I planned to check out the game for 1.0, but then Liza P. Overture dropped at the start of June, and I was distracted by parrying extremely long, flashy combos that, when I first tried them, felt impossible, and soon enough, I felt like a god gamer because I could actually sort of see the matrix and parry them most of the time. Back on topic, the developer for Soulstone Survivors recently reached out to me with a key, so this was the perfect excuse to finally check the game out. And initially, I wasn't that into it. From the look of it, I thought I was going to be. I tend to like bullet heaven games. But I found the runs to be way too easy, and it was kind of boring. And yeah, the early rounds, especially before you start building up curse, are quite easy. But as I kept playing, adding more curse and increasing the difficulty, I also started interacting more with the game's meta progression systems, and I realized how Soulstone Survivors sets itself apart from the rest of the genre. I may not use this segment in my review video, so I apologize if I am plagiarizing myself here. But if I had to describe Vampire Survivors or Brotato in a single word, I would say gameplay. It's all about getting into a run, filling the screen with numbers, killing enemies, and picking up EXP crystals so you can do it all again. But if I had to describe Soulstone Survivors in a single word, I would use meta progression. It's less about what you do within the run, and more about unlocking characters, maximizing their skill trees, unlocking weapons, then realizing you can grind materials to enhance those weapons and have to go back to unlocking runes instead because that's just too much to think about right now. And so after coming to that realization, I spent about 30 more hours playing the game and watching the numbers go up. I'll have a review up shortly. I don't know exactly, but let's just say sometime between next week and the week after. But between trying all the new games and continuing with ones that I'd been playing before, I also jumped in and tried a few demos. First up, Endless Legend 2. Now, I remember Endless Legend as the first 4X game to really focus in on storytelling aspects. I don't know if it was the first game in the genre to do it, or if it was simply the first one that I personally played. But Endless Legend 2 very much continues with this, at times to the point where I felt like I was playing an RPG rather than a 4X game because there were so many quests to progress. And this fits really well with the game. When I was playing Civ 7, the story elements felt a little bit tacked on. It's not that the story elements themselves were bad, I just didn't know what to do with them a lot of the time. It was, oh, cool, an event has happened. Okay, and I guess I click the option and that's it. Nothing happens. Here, as you progress through events, they lead to other events that change the narrative, thus changing your playthrough. The other thing that I haven't seen in another game, again, I'm not saying that Endless Legend 2 is the first game to do this, it is simply the first that I have played. And I think that could be because I haven't played Against the Storm, which I know it's technically not a 4X game, it's a city builder. I don't care. That's also a really good game that's on my backlog, has been for a long time, and I should play it soon. But in Endless Legend 2, there is the Typhoon season, where the entire map is engulfed in a storm, after which the sea recedes, revealing new lands to explore and conquer. This helps you avoid the issue that happens in a lot of 4X games where the entire map's just full of stuff and the only way to gain territory is go kill other people. Now, you can go and explore the land that literally did not exist a few turns ago. And of course, this means more quests to complete as you build your legend. The only complaint I had from the demo is the scoring system. Quite a few times, I would be winning a game, or very close to winning a game, all the way up until the last round. And then I would lose at the very end because another civ jumped up in score right ahead of me. I did everything I could to play out, build a solid empire, manage my military, etc., but it felt like the score was not reflecting that instead the score was reflecting just building units in peacetime ad nauseum. Why would I do that when I could instead make my cities more productive, thus having an overall stronger empire? Maybe this is just me playing wrong and not realizing because I was playing a tiny snippet of the game. Maybe this is that the score system overvalued certain things and undervalued others. I'm not entirely sure. Also, it's a demo, so it's not a big deal. Then there was To Kill a God, which was in a much rougher state. I got a few bugs in my playthroughs, including one that made me very OP because I got a bunch of extra EXP that I wasn't supposed to, and a couple that bricked my run. I did find the core concept interesting, and I especially like they were basically grabbing period crafting and sticking it into a roguelike. More games should grab a version of period crafting. I'm not saying copy it 100%, I'm just saying get a few ideas. Now, I found smashing through enemies within an area quite satisfying, at least when I didn't fall behind on damage, but the skill web I was a little bit more disappointed in. Because right now, a lot of the choices don't really feel like choices. They're just blank nodes, and I could path towards an eventual choice. This is a frustration that I run into in a lot of games, especially in open world games that are story focused, because if the story has a distinct start and a distinct end, with this weird open world ambiguity for its middle piece, nothing within that time feels meaningful. Similarly here, because I can't see most of what I'm going to be offered on the skill web, sure, I can go towards a large offensive or utility node because I can be like, that's probably better than the random small node. Or if there's a specifically standout skill, not that there are very many of those currently, that's something I think the devs have to work on, I could go towards that and say, all right, that is a goal that I can set and achieve. But everything in between is just clicking a blank node and hoping something interesting happens. And so it feels like wandering around in an open world and not meaningfully progressing the story. There might be an endpoint that you know exists, but everything in between is just kind of getting there without it mattering too much. So I'd rather see more variety of nodes on the tree, things that stand out as, okay, this is going to be good, or at the very least, different and interesting, such as maybe a node that gives you a guaranteed exotic item, but might not give a passive as well. That way you're giving up some character power in hopes of finding a really good thing, or maybe instead of a random exotic item, a specific exotic item, so you can, again, path towards it and make that a goal. I know this wouldn't fully eliminate my complaint of feeling like the in-between is pointless, but if I'm only going a couple of nodes of in-between before I get to something interesting, it's not nearly as big of a deal as if most of the nodes I'm selecting, most of the time, are the in-between parts. The third demo that I played was for Shape of Dreams, another action roguelike. And I don't have too much to say about this one because I bounced off of it very hard. The combat just did not click with me. It's not that it feels glitchy or janky, it just did not grab me. There's a lot of mechanics that it seems were inspired by MOBAs. I'm not too into MOBAs, so maybe that's why. Either way, the game's launching in about a month. If you like roguelike games that feel very MOBA-ish, maybe Raven's Watch or something, check it out. But otherwise, maybe give it a pass. Now, last but not least, I wanted to talk about a game that I added to my backlog, that being the Rogue Prince of Persia. During early access, the devs reached out, and so I gave it a shot. I have a checkout video that is on this channel, in fact. And when I did, it was really good. The combination of parkour with action roguelike is pretty rare, and it's very much a flow state game. The combat just feels really, really good, and it is so fun to just jump from enemy to enemy, flipping over them constantly, kicking them off ledges, kicking them into traps, using different weapons, charging up your specials at just the right time, and climbing on a wall to avoid a boss attack. All of that stuff is really, really good. And I'm pretty sure that 1.0 coming out is just more of the same stuff that I was enjoying. But when 1.0 hit, I was already in the middle of playing Soulstone Survivors, and I kind of don't like interrupting a game midway through unless I'm really not enjoying it and planning to put the game down. But the good news here is that the Rogue Prince of Persia is a good game, so it'll be good whenever I get around to playing it. If anything, maybe there's some patches or post-launch support, it'll be even better than it is right now. And so that's everything that I played in August of 2025. This is going to be a little bit longer than my previous videos, because again, I'm not just picking out a few of the best games. This time it's everything I played, and I guess I rambled a little bit more than usual. But hey, that's half the fun of this series, getting to ramble and not worry about the fact that I went off topic several times for no reason other than I wanted to. So, like always, thank you very much for watching to the end. If you enjoyed, do be sure to get subscribed, as I'm going to be making another video next month. Also, if you played anything interesting in August, let me know down in the comments below. For now, thanks for watching to the end. Leave a like if you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.